if you're a small creator right now and your goal is to be a big creator, you're going to have to change to get there.
Oh, yeah. One, if you're stuck behind an ego, like you're never going to grow. What is going on, YouTube, and obviously anybody here in chat? We appreciate all y'all coming through. This is the Game On Financial podcast. I am your local tax guy, Garrett, and this is my co-host, Joseph Lingle. Joseph, do you tell them whatever you do normally?
Manager at Game On Financial. Bringing you guys episode 11 of the podcast. Going to be talking about a couple different topics today, but mainly centered around kind of the bad view that content creation as a career has. I feel like we all know, mostly probably our parents, but we all know people that probably don't view it in the same light that we do working in the industry. And I think content creators get a lot of bad rap, certain like kind of surrounding what they do as a career, the struggles that go into that, and just all the hard work that goes into that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we do, news of the week. How's your week been? I feel like that's always how we kick it off. Me and you've talked a lot this week, of course.
Yeah,
as we always do. But
yeah, I feel like this week we've probably talked more. I mean, you were in my office. We were talking yesterday, probably all morning, about just not rebranding, not rebranding at all, really. It's more of like updates to the website and updates to all these other things that we're doing. And honestly,
about getting better.
We've talked about these things so many times, and it's just like you just don't ever stop. Like as soon as we get one thing figured out, it's something else. It's like, okay, we need to fix this.
There's one thing about me and Garrett, and it's that we're very similar, but we also struggle to agree on things because we both just want it to be perfect. We're both perfectionists in that we're always seeking that, like, that's a good idea, Garrett, but it could be this much better if we did it this way. And so
we could do this,
we're always kind of going back and forth on that.
It's, I mean, to a fault, honestly. Well, and a lot of times I think we're also good about reminding ourselves, like, okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. We just have to get something out. And then once we get it out, it's like, okay, now perfect it. Like, you always come back to it. I think people leave those quotes and stuff like that short. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it done. Mm-hmm. Well, we get it done, and then it's like, okay, we did it. We got it out there. Like, the website's out there. Well, actually, it's not. It's private right now. But it was out there. And then you and I started talking. I'm like, damn, I didn't even think about that. It's like, all right, take the website down, fix it, get it back out there nonstop, constantly. And so been doing that all week. And then that's a good thing. And then balancing that with, we have, tax notices, tax returns, all the stuff we normally always have going on anyway. Jamarian's still out of town, so he's back working this week, took vacation last week. And when you have a small team of 3, that impacts a lot of things that are going on. So, for example...
it really shouldn't. We're kind of learning as we're growing that we want to become fully remote, to where we are fully remote, but we're usually working in office a good bit, and so navigating to where, like, we don't miss a beat. Yeah. I think right now it still is kind of just different when someone's out of office.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you just plan around it and understand that, you're going to have, we've talked about this a million times. This is another thing we talk about all the time. You're going to have situations come up. It could be small, like you have something with your house, you got to meet a contractor that day. And
life.
So, yeah. And so, naturally, it's going to push some things behind, but behind to us is a lot different than being behind for probably, most people. Like, if I miss a week right now, the firm goes on. Like, we're going to be fine. But, if you looked at our uploads last week to YouTube, they were down. I think we uploaded, I think I had 2 shorts that were uploaded last week. They were shorts that we already had prepared the week before that. Now, I think that's good because that points out, like, the flaws. If Jamarian can't leave for a week without everything stopping, especially content, as important as that is, that's a problem. So he was gone last week.
Our standards are trying to be so high, and we're constantly trying to push that bar up. Yep. I said this to you yesterday, if we do have a down week, we want to a down week should still be good, because we've built in that bar, that threshold where if we're crushing it, it's way above the bar. The standard's so high that if we slack off a little bit, the standard's still higher than most. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And we know we're not there yet, but that's kind of what we're constantly struggling for.
Yeah. And going back to what we said earlier, I don't think we ever get there. I think it's always just like, because the moment we say we've gotten there, we've lost. Like, I mean, we're already like, exactly. So constantly pushing that. And that's what I've been doing all week. I feel like that's what I've been doing the past couple of weeks, honestly.
Shifting kind of out of the day-to-day work and more into the business, running the business, operations, and looking kind of more from that, instead of that 5,000-foot view, that 50,000-foot view where you're able to kind of zoom out and say, how is this running? Is it how I want it?
Yeah.
Most of the time the answer is no.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. On a personal note, though, what I've been doing all week, workouts have been good. Sleep has been good. I had one day where I was up really late working on the website. I kind of got in a groove, and the next day was chalked, and I regretted doing it.
Yeah, I woke up to a Discord at like 2 a.m.
Yeah,
Like,
dude, I was crushing it. I was in the zone, man. I was like locked in, and it was one of those situations where, you look at the clock and you're like, okay, it's midnight. I need to go to bed. Like, I got to get up. This will be here tomorrow. But I was enjoying it. Like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to finish this one last thing. And then this one last thing turned to something else and turned to something else. And so, that day specifically was bad. But everything else, sleep's been good. Wife is out of town this weekend. And ironically, I'm excited about that because I have house projects to do that I've been putting off. And then I also have just some work that I'm excited to do, knowing now, like,
uninterrupted.
It's uninterrupted, yeah. And I don't ever consider my wife or my daughter a burden, but knowing that they're going to be gone and I'm here alone, like, I'm sitting here thinking like, man, I can just sit down and do it. And I don't have to bring home food. I don't have to do anything else. Just I can do whatever I want. I can work.
I told you this the other day, but it's like when those weekends come around where there's going to be space between you and your spouse, a lot of times you're almost excited for that space sometimes. And then it comes, and I promise you, by Sunday you'll be like wishing she's back. You're
dude, yeah.
It's like a day goes by, but I mean, it is interesting how that groove of just like the monotony of having to do the chores and this and that, and like having just like, okay, I can just lock into this one thing and not be interrupted. Because I mean, I remember living alone before I was married and stuff, and like those were some of the best times because I could just do truly whatever I wanted. It's different now, but no, I mean, we obviously, we love that side of it too. But
life is good. It just changes, and you look back and you're like, man, I had so much time. But the thing is like you were busy then too.
Yeah,
you felt busy. It wasn't like, oh, I remember before I had kids or before this. It's like, no, you filled that time then too, and so it just changes, know. And right now, this is a weekend reprieve, if you will, and people probably look at this and like, your wife and daughter are gone, and you just want to work. And I'm like, yes. I just want to focus on this. So yeah, anyway, how was your week? Like, what have you done? And I'm your boss. So tell me, how was your week? What have you done anything this week
KPIs,
productive?
What are the KPIs?
What are the KPIs?
Let's go through them. No, my week's been good. Been pretty consistent at the gym, which has been good as well. That's I feel like for me and you both like an important factor of like if workouts are going well and we feel like we're consistent there, we're probably having.
You can tell the mindset shift when we're doing well there. Like when we're in the office, we're like I had a good lift this morning. You're like, oh, dude, that's great.
It's just motivating, man. I see all these people about like, starting to do some fitness content and stuff. It's a lot of the creators that we work with that are more involved in the gaming side of content, that are doing more gym content. And like, I love it because even just them tweeting about it is so motivating for people. And we know how it affects us so positively. We work at a desk all day, at a computer all day, getting out there, just the physical exercise aspect, but also just the mental, right? Pushing yourself,
so big,
being locked in, routine, all that stuff. So yeah, that's been good. Work's been good. We're coming off the end of the quarterlies and kind of wrapping up some of that stuff. My kind of, I guess, to-dos here at work are changing a little bit going into the next quarter because I'll probably be working a lot more on this content stuff, some marketing stuff.
Yeah. We discussed the quarterlies were going to kind of not put you out of commission, but that was another area where we said like, we've got to standardize this and get it better because you're being pulled in two directions now with the content, which you've done as good of a job as you can do, considering the quarterlies just take time. Like, I mean, we can't put that to the side.
At the end of the day, we are here for, at the end of the day, you love that.
We are Jamarian, take count. That's one, okay? I need somebody in chat counting that. That's at the end of the day. That's one, okay? Every time he says that.
At the end of the day, we are, it's part of my point. We are accountants and we're doing accounting work. Yep. And so I said this yesterday to the team, we were having a conversation, but if we can't do the accounting work because we're trying to do content or marketing, what are we doing? Because we're just marketing, we're skipping out on the accounting work. So that does take precedent. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, the quarterlies take time because we're meeting with all of our clients and getting them stuff. So, but yeah, no, things are good. We can kind of jump on in. I had a couple topics for the week that before we get into our main topic for today, I'll run through them and then you can give thoughts on anyone that you want to kind of take and run with. New COD announced. I don't think that it surprised us at all. We knew that was coming. Yeah. I mean, it was leaked and all that. I honestly am not even very excited for it. I don't even think. My hope is not there.
The goal of this podcast is not to talk negatively about anything. So if it's a situation like this, Joseph and I have both discussed behind the scenes that, just with all the drama and everything that surrounded COD this year alone, I don't even want to talk about it. Like,
It's not
I'm
even
not
that.
excited
love
about
COD.
it.
I'm going to play it. I'm just not excited. I don't know.
We talked about how we're probably like legitimately this time going to wait for the game to come out, let some, those beginning updates happen and all that, and then kind of see what's going on.
Instead of getting our hopes up and then being disappointed when it launches.
Yeah, because that, I mean, and that's the thing is like we'll just breeze over that one because we don't want to be, negative Nail over here and just.
But yeah, next was Sentinels announced basically that they were.
Another negative topic.
Yeah, but I mean, well, that all three are actually kind of negative. But yeah, Sentinels basically the org. I mean, they announced that they weren't going to be able to continue operating. They only had about 2 or 3 months left to be able to operate with the revenue and income that they had currently. And they were basically trying to crowdfund and raise capital to keep existing. And I want to hear your opinion on this, and I don't want to see it caught up here, but going back to the podcast we did talking about esports and organizations, this is not surprising at all. No. And I think you saw a lot of people posting about it, saying like, "Oh my gosh, this and that." And I saw quite a few that weren't surprised either. But to me, this is like, man, they said they were operating with over $700,000 a month of salaries for players and creators. I mean, if the revenue's not there, that is unsustainable. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So it wasn't surprising for me, but I did want to at least touch on it because it is in our industry.
Yeah, I'll do you one better. The $700,000 actually included just the office staff. No. I think it was the players. I take it back. It was the players because they looked up. Okay, so first and foremost, I was fortunate enough I went to the Gamer Update. I was watching Jake Lucky and them break the story. Mm-hmm. And they were truly like the first ones to break it, which was awesome. Because I was just in chat when they were talking about it. And it was awesome because, most people in chat, when it comes to reading financials and everything, that's not their forte, and that makes perfect sense. But Jake and them are going down the financials, and I'm sitting there reading them along with them, and I know what the financials are saying. It's telling a story. And Jake Lucky actually in his stream, he was like, "Tax guy, I say this, as respectfully as I can. You're the biggest nerd I know." And he was like, and that's a good thing. I like respectfully. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I trust me, I've already accepted that. But it was because like one, they were talking about the salaries and the CEO and how much that person gets paid. And they were like, the CEO is serving as the CFO as well. Is that common? Is it not? This and that. And I was actually in chat saying like, no, it's not common. Right. It only happens when a CFO leaves or is fired, terminated,
and they can't support
the role initially, and then they go and hire somebody else. All that being said, the only surprising thing about all of this, I think they're running a loss of like 8.5 mil for like year over year. And literally Jake and them broke the story, and then investors on their crowdfunding website were actually backing out. They had like 40-something investors. They had raised $70-something thousand, which that is not going to do.
Yeah, it's nothing.
That's a drop in the bucket, not going to move the needle. So anyway, the investors back out and all that, literally like 2 hours after Jake and them broke the story, which you hate to see. But the only surprising thing is it took this long because they were running, they had 8.5 million, I think, in expenses or something like that, and maybe the loss was actually like 6 million. Like they had 2 million of income, 8.5 million of expenses, a $6 million loss every year. One, do you know how many like big businesses where all the venture capital and all that, you know how long they're going to let that happen before they cut the project? You got like 18 months. Yeah. Because you show loss the first year, and in the next 6 months, it better be turned around or you're done. Right. And then when you factor that into like was nobody looking at the numbers? Like you can tell this didn't just happen overnight. Like they're breaking the story overnight, but that's the problem with orgs is like people are just driving in the dark, not paying attention.
And there's numbers a lot bigger than this too. I mean, FaZe lost a lot more than that last year.
And those financials are public. We can go pull those. Right. Now these financials for the Sentinels were public because they were trying to crowdfund. Yeah. And so they had to be publicized. But FaZe has been public for a long time.
But there's a lot that aren't. To your point, there's a lot of private companies that are running these in the background, but it's the same thing. And I mean, it's really crazy when you think about the space as a whole. And we could sit here and talk esports for a whole episode. We actually have an episode on that. If you're interested in listening to it, go check it out. But But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. It's not surprising.
No.
They said basically they were looking for 1.2. If they get it, they'll be able to operate for another 2 months. It's like, what is that even going to do?
I'd love to talk through that later on, like break down the financials, similar to how Jake and them did it, but they did it from they were breaking the story. I'd like to dive deeper. And I don't know that.
Do what I was talking about earlier and do a live on that and just hop in and kind of go
we
through it
should.
together.
And we should do it with Phase 2 and any of these other publicly traded. I mean, for example, the financials we could get for Complexity in those guys, because that is a publicly traded org.
Yeah.
It's just, that is a segment of the overall. It's a subsidiary, yeah. So that would be awesome to go and check those things out. But yeah, we've talked about it. If you want the full story, and I definitely recommend go listening to Jake and Hunter talk about it, because it was like really interesting hearing their thoughts on the matter. They are obviously very tied in with all the esports orgs. So go listen to their take on it. But from a financial standpoint, I definitely think we could literally break down the financials for these different orgs and show none of them make money.
And what you should be looking out for, and
really
just what you see.
What I want to see is 100 Thieves, because they have the best merchandise out there. I want to see theirs. I still don't think they're turning a profit.
I saw a clip from Nadeshot from their podcast this week, and that I wasn't going to bring up, but to your point, he was asked the question was posed to him, and this was the clip, was if you had $1 million and before all this, you go back before 100 Thieves started and all that, if you just were completely removed as a person in the space, if you had $1 million, would you invest in esports? And he was like no, like of course not. Why would I do that? And like in a team and players, whatever it may be in esports. Right. And he's, of course he said no. And he said, look, man, 100 Thieves was not supposed to be an esports league. He's like, or esports org. He was like, I was never trying to get back into esports. He was like, this was meant to be a merchandise org, or a merchandise company. And it just ended up happening that, he got the itch to have a COD team, and then he got
it's because it's Nadeshot, and yeah,
and it's his background, but he's doing that. That is fueled out of his passion for the industry, not out of it was even his goal to do it. And financially, definitely not. And so, just interesting, but I'll keep us moving, because I know we could talk about that topic forever.
We should. That should definitely be another episode, because we could talk for a long time about
definitely
passion as it compares to literal just business sense and knowledge. Like their passion is great, don't get me wrong, but how long can you run an $8 million loss every year before it's like, all right, somebody's going to squash that passion out.
And even some of these VCs like you talked about that have hundreds of millions, they're still not cool with just burning $1 million or 8 million for that matter. So but yeah, before we get into the main topic, the one thing I wanted to just talk about a little bit, because we were talking about it off the podcast this morning and last night, is Twitter, right? The X rebrand. We're not going to dive into that rebrand as a whole and the marketing side of it. We could probably on a whole episode, but really more how it affects the people that we work with, and that's the monetization side. They released their program, and people have started to get paid for basically ads on impressions.
Yep.
I just wanted to talk through it a little bit before we get to our main topic on like your opinion, your thoughts. I've seen a lot of people sharing what they've made, and then a lot of people commenting on it. Yeah. The sentiment I feel like I received was negative. And I don't really know why, because I think it's very, very good. I think it's very important and it's going to be very important for creators that utilize Twitter. But what are your thoughts?
I think the sentiment around X in general, the application, is just negative, because the conversion, and again, not to get political, but it was very, very left wing, and now it's being swung in another direction, and there's just so much controversy around all of that the being paid for your impressions and stuff like that, it's almost like it's going unnoticed, because everybody's focused on everything else. And that's why I think some of those posts about that, you have mixed reactions. You have like, this is awesome for creators, which it is. I love the fact that they can monetize now. And I think some of our creators that we already work with, it's like, they're not going to have to do anything extra. They're just going to do what they've always done and get paid for it. Exactly. And maybe they do focus on it now because the CPMs and all are so good. Maybe, I don't know. But overall, I think that aspect of it has just been kind of swept under the rug, because Elon has changed so many things so quickly. For right or wrong, I don't care about any of that. It's just those are the changes. All these changes have happened, and all these updates, and then you have just the political aspect of it overall. Yeah. It's like monetization came to the platform, and everybody's like, I mean, whatever. And then like Elon's trying to do too much, and like you could get paid to tweet.
Yeah,
like, I mean, you don't like that, like, you know. And so I don't know. It's weird. It'll be fun to watch it play out. And I'll say, you and I, you know, I just referenced Jake Lucky because they broke the news. And speaking of Twitter and X, Devin Nash has a video out on it. And you and I are not newscasters. We're not, you know, we're not journalists. We're not trying to break the news. Right. We're just taking the news as we see it. And so when we reference all these other things, we're trying to, not saying like we're influenced by these other people, but we're trying to take all the information that we can gather and then just
be as unbiased as we can.
And be as unbiased and talk about it. Yeah. And so I would say, like, go watch the Devin Nash video, and he explains it really in depth. Listen to us talk about it, and then formulate your own thoughts about it. I think it's great because I think, you know, if you can separate it out from the monetization piece, from the other things that may be happening that, you know, Elon's trolling people and stuff like that, I think that's kind of funny. Other people think it's really childish. That doesn't matter when it comes to the monetization, right? So, you know, if you can use it and make money off of it, do it, you know?
Yeah, I think the key here that a lot of people aren't recognizing is they're very focused on the CPM.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's 1.001 cent for every 1,000 impressions, which sounds super, super low, right? Yeah. It sounds like, well, what the heck? Like, that's not going to...
That's nothing.
But the key is... An impression is not a view. No. An impression on Twitter is different than a view on YouTube or a view on Instagram or anything like that. An impression is like a whole lot of different things. And to your point, referencing the Devin Nash video, he goes into great detail on this, and so I'm not going to do that here. But the point is it's a lot easier to get impressions on Twitter than it is to get views on YouTube or views on any other platform. And so even though the CPM seems low, and maybe right now even is, if you're racking up those impressions, and even mid-sized creators are doing just that, hundreds of thousands of impressions or even millions of impressions per tweet, you're able to not only hit these numbers. When it came out, it was 15 million impressions over 3 months, and people were like, oh, well, why should I even try? It's like, that's a lot more achievable than you think.
I think it also brings to light a lot of creators who are doing great things for the community, but haven't been able to monetize in other ways. Mm-hmm. And the one that jumps out to me, just if you watch his content, his stream, and then Twitter and all that, is Modern Warzone. So when you take Modern Warzone and Doug Dagnabbit running that channel, when he streams 100, 200 concurrent viewers, successful stream, that's probably, I mean, when you're averaging 100 to 200 viewers, that's probably top, I don't know what the percentage is, probably top
10%.
At least. You know, I'd say it's higher than that, because you don't realize most people are streaming to nobody. And then if they are streaming, it's 10, 20. He's averaging 100 to 200. That's awesome. Transition into Kick, maybe getting the split there. Posting YouTube content, but I think he's been a little inconsistent on that, but he's been posting, you know, all the updates and everything that's happening. And where do people go to get those updates? They go to Twitter. They want to see the Call of Duty updates there first, and then
if I'm
they'll
not mistaken, his Twitter's pretty big.
At least, I think up to this point, he's like 800K.
Yeah.
So 800,000, and that, we talking about impressions, he's already getting a lot of impressions. He's just never been paid for it on Twitter. Twitter has been the main hub where people go to get Call of Duty info. And then what do? They get the news and the info there, and then they say, like, okay, this is the meta loadout. Let me go watch a video from one of the guys or one of the guys or girls that is, like, slaying out. And I'm going to go watch Jowo's meta review video, but you got the news originally from Modern Warzone. And so, like, that's going to help him out greatly. Definitely. You know, and I think that's awesome.
With those types of creators, I mean, I'm sure you'll see certain ones do better than others. You know, news channels where stuff gets shared a lot and commented on a lot, or even, you know, like the meme pages and stuff that just get sent all around. Like, those obviously get more impressions than educational type pages, or maybe even our page would. Yep. But I do think, to your point, those people are going to be doing nothing different than they're currently doing, and they're going to get paid for it. And so I think it's huge. I think it's really cool. I'm excited for it, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be super successful. And I think the people that aren't jumping on the train early, or aren't really, like, committing to it, will later. So.
Yeah. Before we hop topics, thank you, Ben, for the happy affiliate anniversary. Yes, I guess it's my stream anniversary here on Twitter. So thank you, Ben. And then Ben also said, let's go. So I appreciate you coming through.
On Twitch. You
on
said
Twitch.
Twitter.
I said Twitter. We were talking about Twitter. You know what I meant.
Yeah,
we will stream on X, not Twitter. Even
I'm going to keep calling it Twitter.
I know. We're going to stream on Twitter here shortly because we want those CPMs too. I mean, we're trying to get those impressions.
That's another thing too, is the change just of doing the live streaming there. I think that's going to be big too.
That's awesome. I love it. I think people have had great success doing, a lot of people shifted to streaming on TikTok. Mm-hmm. They got the bag and they're going to start doing it on Twitter now.
I think Twitter will be pushing it heavy too. I don't think it'll be everywhere. You're not going to be able to get on Twitter and not see live streams. I think they're going to push it hard just to get people on.
Dude,
there.
I'm interested. Like because of how fast the updates are coming out, I am super interested to see how different Twitter looks a year from now.
Yeah.
Because since Elon took
He's
over,
fast.
It's fast, man. And I
don't think people really understand how hard it is for a company that large to move fast. Most people don't have any idea in their mind of like the process that decisions are made through companies like that. Yeah. And I mean, even companies that are half that size, I mean, it sometimes takes 6+ months to make decisions on small stuff, on internal stuff. He's changing the way they're doing everything. He's rebranding. He's starting monetization stuff. He's starting and people are like you said, like it just kind of breezing over. Like, they're worried about the content that's on the app. It's like he is changing the game. Like whether you like him or hate him, he's making moves.
Yeah. So, and a lot of them.
Definitely.
Fast.
All right. So
next topic. Come on.
Let's get on to the main topic of today because we've rambled for 30 minutes now.
Yep.
So the main topic for today is going to be kind of centered around this tweet that I saw, which maybe when we throw this up on the YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, maybe we'll have it posted on the screen here. But a tweet by Snoopy that really triggered my mind on content creators and how they're viewed by kind of I would say the outside world, but really even also people in the industry. And it's really, really good. And I really recommend you guys go check it out and just maybe comment or see your opinion on it. I'm just going to read the first part. It's a thread. I'm going to read it for those listening right now. And then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about our opinion on it. So what he says is, becoming a full-time gaming creator is the dream job for many gamers. You get to work from home, play games for a living, get paid well, choose when to work. Hardware and games become business expenses, and then, quote unquote, you get to play games for a living. And then he goes on and basically says kind of the pros and cons on it. Mm-hmm. And it basically talks a lot about the negative aspects to it. And there's a couple different considerations around this that we're going to cover here, but it really just got me thinking because, so many times when we talk about what we do to people, we say, yeah, we're accountants, but we work with content creators and gamers. We automatically get that response like, do people really make that much money on the internet? Do people really make that much money playing video games? How do they get paid? Right?
I can't tell my family what I do because it's the same conversation every time.
I went home probably 6 months ago and was talking about what we do, and I got into like an 1.5 hour long conversation with my dad about it because they don't understand, right? Mm-hmm. And so what comes along with that misunderstanding is a lot of confusion on how hard these people actually work.
Oh my gosh.
And so I guess the first question I would pose to this is like, not reading directly from this tweet, but what are some of the things that you see our creators struggling with? I want you to go first, and then I'm going to kind of respond my opinion as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, as it relates to work, just doing the job in general, one thing that they struggle with is like managing time. I mean, none of them are using a calendar, but I'd go so far as to say managing other people's time too. I mean, they're not outsourcing. We've talked about this a million times, but they don't have an editor. They don't have, and then when you get those people, it's not like those people just come in and wipe away the problems. That does not happen ever. You have to think so far in advance, like so far long-term, because when you bring somebody on, you got to train them. You got to get them acclimated to your style and what you're doing and what you're trying to do and where your vision is and all these different things. And that has nothing to do with literally sitting down and editing. Like you have to do all this before you can even get to that point. And managing all that is just really difficult. And I think, you get on and you see these really crisp videos and like you see these things, and I'm going to use the editor example, but you could do, thumbnail artists, like we don't even have to get into professional services and all that stuff, but just the literal work, the people who are going to help you make money. There's so much to doing that and running a business that I don't think people consider. And because they don't even look at it as a business. You know, I tell my parents that, and they're like, they make money doing that? I have to explain, yes, they make money. Well, how do they make money? This is how you make money. And it's like, if I told them, like, yeah, a lot of these creators are working like freaking 14-hour days, like nonstop from the time they get up. Yeah. They have terrible sleep schedules. They never work out. They don't do anything healthy for themselves. They're door dashing. Like, they're not paying attention to what they're like spending money on, because all they're trying to do is just grind out the streams and stuff like that. And these are like the hardest workers. You know, I'm assuming in this situation, we're talking about people who are actually making a business out of it.
What average work hours over years, like 2,000 or 2,500?
2,080, I think.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure XQC last year, just to reference one big creator, streamed 3,600 hours.
And so if he streamed 3,600, but he also has a YouTube channel, how did he do it all?
Yeah.
Did he do it himself?
I might be wrong on that, but I think I heard that somewhere. It was definitely over 3,000.
If he streamed 2,500, if you were off by 1,000 hours, it doesn't matter. That's a lot of time. Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. You know, and that's a work year. That's the standard work year, 40 hours a week.
Right.
And so,
so I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, the time management and just the schedule aspect of it, and that kind of ever changing, or just having to set that yourself, I think is huge. For me, I'd say the number one thing that I see the struggle being on is the volatility of it, like the constant changing.
And how much of that have we seen?
Man, I mean, and it's not just in one way. It's in the monetization. It's in the platforms these people are using. It's in everything. I mean, CPM changes. I mean, you're talking about when these different platforms, say at YouTube, TikTok, when they change, we're going to change CPM from $5 to $1, or from $1 to 25 cents per CPM. You're talking about changing somebody's bank account by 100K, depending how big they are. I mean, some of these changes, and then you're as a creator, when you are doing those 14-hour days and you are grinding, and then a change like this happens, man, that's like completely out of your control. Yes, it's your business. You control when you work. You control these things. You know, the pros of it, right? The being able to work from home and work whenever you want.
Oh, how nice.
Right. But you don't get to control what YouTube decides their split's going to be. When you're on Twitch and you have a 70-30 deal, and then they say, nope, 50-50 from everybody, and you can't advertise your brand on your page anymore. I mean, why do you think these people are upset? Nope. And I think that from the outside view, people have no clue that this is how it works. One, you said they don't even understand how they're actually monetizing. But from a creator standpoint, how stressful is that? Like, hey, this is your business. You have all this freedom over here, but we get to decide how much we pay you, and we get to decide the cut, and you don't have any of the power. And I mean, man, that's huge.
And go back to that same list. And Ben, I noticed your comment. I'm going to hit on that in a second. He's talking about school teachers said that like 85% of kids want to be YouTubers when they grow up, is what they're saying.
Yeah.
We'll hit on that in just a second. But think about that list that you read out, and it's like work from home and, you know, all these the pros of being a content creator. Those can just as easily be negatives. Like, working from home some days is miserable. Have you ever sat at home? Like, you remember when COVID happened and we were at another firm, we were forced to work from home.
I do.
That was the most depressed I've been like in my life, because I was like, all of a sudden, if you're not prepared for that as a business, communication drops off. These creators, they're at home alone all the time. And yes, like, they may be in Discord with their buddies and stuff like that who are other creators, but that's a lot of times why they only play with other creators, is because like their other friends are at work.
Yeah.
Like, their job is to sit there during the day. You get to play games for a living. What if the game sucks and there's no good games out? Like, that's
another thing, like I said about the volatility, is like, if you're a Call of Duty creator and the game has a bad year, which we have creators we work with that this is the exact
Imagine
case.
Vanguard, bro. You got to play Vanguard all day long.
Or just your content centered around it is just horrible, and now you're not motivated. I mean, it's huge. And so I don't want to skip over the one point you brought up, which is the alone part of it. You know, the feeling alone is not only are you truly alone in what you're, you know, in the creating the content, right? You're on your stream with your chat or whatever, but just the whole industry, like the structure of all of it is centered around, it's a selfish job, right? It's you, and you're doing your own thing. And not that all solo entrepreneurships are like that.
Yeah.
But this industry definitely is. And I think for the people who do really grind, and like you said, maybe they stream 10, 12 hours a day, and they're creating content late, they're not sleeping much. The mental health aspect of it, man, it is huge.
And you don't even realize that you're in a bad mental space until you are, and you're like, I just don't feel like my content's the same. I just don't feel like I enjoy doing this. And, you know, this is something you feel bad about it because you're like, I would have killed for this job not too long ago.
Right.
But then it's just like, it's a job.
But
It is
you
work.
still have the stress on the back, especially this is for live streamers, but even for YouTubers, right? People that create longer form content that they edit out. But now they don't feel like they can take a break because, again, what is it? It's Twitch subs, it's Kick subs. If they're not on and their face isn't on, their subs are going down. And so even though they're hating it and they're not having fun and they're not enjoying it, they feel like they still got to get on. And so you get in this cycle. And that's exactly what his tweet says here. And again, maybe we'll throw it up on the screen, but he basically says you get in a cycle where you maybe do take some time off because you're forced to, and you just don't pick up Twitter, you don't go live, you don't make a YouTube video. And then what happens? Maybe a new game launches or you do get back to it. And then now it's like, let's go again. And now maybe you do have a good 6-month run or a year run, but it's inevitable it's going to happen again because the whole structure is not sustainable.
Yeah, you have to. The hardest part about being a content creator is you have to. I'm going to say that you don't have to do anything I'm saying, but if you're going to be consistent and you're going to be good at it, you have to be so diligent and disciplined with your schedule and what you're like. You have to mentally. It's really hard because you have to think like, I'm going to burn out if I don't do it. And me, Jamari, and we're all here working, and I can look at you and say like, you know, you probably need to take some time off or something like that. Like I could see it, and I don't tell you that because it hasn't come to that yet. But like if you were just going like way too hard, I could look at you and be like, bro, you might just need to take a nap. Like you need to go home and. You know, but they don't have that. They don't have anybody who's doing that. They just, you know, and when you get in that, and when you get in that rut, you're like, I got to get sleep, you know. But by the time you hit that point, it's too late. Like you should have rested long before. You should have taken a mental break. You should have done all these things. You have to set your schedule up that way. And it's really difficult to do because you do feel like you've got to be on all the time,
right?
You know, and so it's super difficult. Now, this is not a woe is me session by any means. Like it is a great job to have. I'd say it's the best job to have if you make it the best. You know, I'm not saying like, you know, I always go back to the blue collar, like, you know, your hands don't look like this. You ain't working. You know, that's how people think about it. I think that's a stigma to it. It's a lot of work, but it's also like it's super beneficial if you do it correctly and make it so that, you know, you don't have to bend your life around it all the time. You know,
well, and I think we've talked a little bit about, and we talked about this, I think either last podcast or the last episode, maybe 2 ago, where we kind of talked about setting up your business, right, and structuring it in a certain way to where you are making money while you're not live or while you're not working, and how important that can be. And it's for exactly this reason, because a lot of the cons are centered around the unpredictableness of it.
Yeah.
You have to make it, you have to proof it of that, right? You have to make it to where if YouTube does change CPM, you have other revenue sources. You are getting brand deals. If brand deals dry up, you are streaming, so you can still do that. If you know, and you constantly have to be, I mean, some of it's research, right? Okay, Twitter Live is going, let's try out Twitter Live, you know, or TikTok Live. You said that. Platforms are going to constantly change. So I think it is somewhat of a, you know, I'm sure creators don't think of themselves doing R&D like a you know, a traditional company doing research and development, but they are, right? They're on Twitter. They're seeing the stuff.
They have to.
Maybe I should try that out. But I think when you see the people who are willing to change and are willing to switch to maybe a platform like Kick, how many creators have we seen pop off there? You know what I mean? So I think that's a big part of it too. But yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on and dive a little bit deeper on is something that you talked about, which is basically thinking in the future, right? Thinking ahead. How many creators do we work with that, and I just really want your honest opinion on this because I don't know the answer. How many creators do we work with that couldn't tell you what next year looks like? Definitely not 5 years, but definitely just like next year.
Ooh. I'll give most of them the benefit of the doubt because COVID changed things. Twitter's changing things. That being said, it's always changing. And I think if we've realized anything, it's like there is no stagnant. Like you've got it. We've seen creators who were making hundreds of thousands on Facebook gone now. And so
literally gone, like zero.
I would say probably 95% of our creators don't know. 95, and that may seem high. We've got 1 or 2 that are on top of it. Like they know they have a plan and they're setting the foundation. And this, we say this all the time. You got to be discoverable, And so they're setting themselves up on discoverable platforms first, truly prioritizing it, and then they stream when they have time. The people who are doing that, they can better look at it and say, like, here's about where I'm going to be within reason. Most of them can't. They're going live. They're doing well, but they're going live, and while they're getting it while the getting's hot, and that's good. And some of them will pivot, some won't. Right. And we talk about this all the time. That's how we have to adjust our business, is understand that we're going to have creators who come on and they're making a lot of money, but it won't always be the case. And so I don't think most of them are. And, we do what we can to say, like, hey, we need to be more forward thinking on some of these things. Mm-hmm. And, any professional, any finance, accounting, probably even attorney, I think back to John Laster, and John's very, very smart, and he's always looking at these things too. And I guarantee you he's having these conversations with those clients, but just looking at it and saying, like, hey, look,
what's your plan here?
This is all great. And that's why I think, we probably get the negative connotation a lot of times, because we're like, go. And we're like, slow down.
We're trying to help them solve the problem.
Yeah, exactly. And that, a lot of times people don't like that. Not because they don't hate us by any means, but they don't like, that they're like, oh, I want to do this. This is like, hey, slow down. Yeah. We got to set kind of a foundation here, because next year you could go flat broke if you're only streaming on Facebook or something like that.
We actually had a client that we no longer work with, who I'm not going to speak of, but where this exact thing happened, where we basically for months on end, we're trying to tell them, hey, this is an issue. We should be thinking about the future. This isn't unsustainable. And ultimately things didn't change, and they suffered from that. And so I think, not that we always know the right answers. That's not at all what I'm saying. However, most creators get so wrapped up in the day in, day out.
Yep.
They don't even know what next month looks like.
Nope.
And so I think a big part of this, and
they don't even know what the past 6 months look like until we tell them. Sadly enough, they don't even think about that. Like, we're talking forward thinking.
Yeah, that brand new. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I forgot about that. And like, wait, I've made that much, or man, exactly. I thought I was going to have a better June or something like that. We see it all the time. They're not even. It's not that they're not just forward thinking. They're not thinking about the past. They're not thinking at all.
Yeah,
financially speaking.
Right. And I think really what we're talking about here, that's what drives a lot of this, is the financial stress that it creates. And so if I could give one piece of advice, it would be, for me, it would be to take a step back sometimes. I think for the people who do have a team around their content creation, whether it's editors, whether it's a content manager, whether it's maybe even people like us, professionals that are in the space, you should be taking a step back and asking questions to those people. Like, do you think this is a good structure? Is this sustainable? Am I going to be able to do what I'm doing now, week in, week out, for the next year? What does that look like? And I think if you take the time to do that and really kind of, I guess, self-reflect a little bit on your business, it's self-reflection on you inherently, because it's all centered around you, but self-reflect on your business and how it's structured. I think you'd be able to answer a lot of those questions and then kind of fill those gaps where it's not sustainable. If the answer is no, I can't do this for this long, maybe it's like, get it while the getting's good, and then do take a break.
Yeah,
I talked to a content creator, a fairly large content creator that we work with. I guess it was 2 months ago, and he told me that he went out of town for, I think, 3 weeks, and that was the first vacation he had taken in 4 years.
Yeah.
And that was crazy to me, because I see his books and I see how successful he's been, and I'm thinking, man, this is awesome, and what he gets to do. I even envy it sometimes. But then to hear him say that, I'm like, wow. I mean, and when he says that, that means like he might take a day off or here or there, but he's working probably 6 days a week streaming. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is unsustainable.
And what do you do, bro, on the day off? You're like cutting the grass and getting groceries, and like, bro, it's like you're doing all the other things that you put off the entire time. Like,
right.
It's not. Yeah, and I know like a lot of people would probably listen to that and say like, oh, well, welcome to the real world. But the whole point of this is, yeah, they're in the real world too. This is very much a job for a lot of these people, for all the people we work with.
Right.
And yeah, it's not as, bro, you hear them on YouTube and they're enthusiastic and all, but we get on a call and they sound dead tired. And it's like, that there's a better way. I'll say that, going back to the calendar overall, the calendar is critical, because it's so freeing when we set our calendars. And I can always work on this, right? And this is something I can be better at. When you set your calendar, people think like, oh, now I'm stuck to it. It's like, no, that is freedom. Like, if you set that calendar and you stick to it, it's like a workout plan. And it's like, I don't want to go to the gym today. It's like, no, just keep going. Trust me. Mm-hmm. That is freedom, because then you can schedule a vacation 6 months from now, and you're constantly thinking like, okay, what needs to get done before that vacation, right? You go on a hunting trip in January, right? And you tell me, I think you've done it the past 2 years. You've been like, I'm going on this trip, going to Arkansas.
Right.
I'm going to be going for a week, 2 weeks. Like, great. We know what we need to do. You're going to be gone. Like, it's already scheduled. That's great. And like, yeah, something could come up in between now and then, and that's going to happen. But like, just knowing in the back of your head, like, this is when I'm going, this is what we're going to do, blah, 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 you can now plan around that. Yeah. And that's what, we've known about Jamarin's trip this entire time, but then he goes on his trip, he's out for a week, and our content falls off. Whose fault is that? Like, yeah. That's what sucks about it. Is like, we didn't plan well enough. Yeah. It wasn't prepared. Yeah, we didn't prepare well enough. And so, we are just as guilty as most people. But if you set that calendar and really like focus on that,
you're setting yourself up for success.
You're setting yourself up for success. Like, so much better. And dude, once you set it, you can like take a peek at it every morning. That's the first thing I check every morning, my calendar. And I look at it probably the night before too, just to be sure. Mm-hmm. Check it that morning. Right. And then it's like, okay, here I can look at this calendar, say I've got three calls today. I already know, like, hey, Garrett, you got 3 calls today. Maybe you're recording a podcast like last week or something like that. It's a crazy day. I don't feel bad now when I don't get any actual work done. I already know, like, 3 calls, a podcast, I'm not getting anything done today. Yep. I feel better about it at that time. And with content creation, it's like you're just going, and then you constantly feel guilty, like, I should be doing this, I should be doing more. When if you set that calendar, you'd already know, like, bro, you set aside 8 hours every day, Monday through Friday, to get to stream.
Yeah.
When did you think you were going to edit? Like, if you look at that, when did you think you were going to edit? You weren't going to do that, and now you feel guilty for it, when in reality, you should have looked at it and said, like, I'm going to stream 4 hours a day.
It wasn't going to work from the beginning.
Exactly. And you'd have known that if you put it on paper. But I think people don't do that because they feel like it then limits them. Mm-hmm. Secretly, they were limited the whole time. Yeah. They just didn't want to acknowledge it. I
think one thing that's interesting, too, that maybe could help with this is, when you look at your business as a whole, set like, I'm big on goal setting, but just in general, what is the goal here? Like, what is the goal this year? Are you just streaming on Kick because it's got a good sub split and you're just like, or like, what is the goal? Do you have, Are you trying to get to 5,000 subs by the end of the year, or are you trying to get 100 concurrent by the end of the year? Like, whatever the goal may be, big or small, I think having an idea for what the future looks like for you is so important. And I think it does play back into the mental health aspect of this, of like, if you're going day in, day out, it doesn't matter how good you're doing, you're going to burn out and you're going to feel like a failure at some point.
Yeah.
This whole industry is centered around online presence, social media. You're constantly comparing yourselves to other people, to other people's content that you shouldn't be comparing to because it's completely different than yours.
Yeah.
Their numbers, all their, how they're doing, their impressions, versus setting up your own goals. And then what happens when you hit those goals? Because you inevitably will if you're grinding like you are. Now you can be fulfilled and you can be happy and you can take pride in the fact that maybe I don't have 10 million, but I got 1 million, or maybe I don't have 1 million, but I got 100,000. And
absolutely,
I think that's so important in how you view your business and your, everything is setting realistic goals and kind of like sticking to that, which, going back, we have to be forward thinking to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I think and that goes for anything, we set for the gym weight goals, like we just want to hit a certain amount of weight. And a lot of times, even with goals, it's not so much as like, especially long-term goals, it's not hitting the goal so much as it is like, what do you become by trying to hit the goal?
In the chase to get there.
In the chase to get, we said, one goal with us, we want to post 100 videos on YouTube, short, long form, it doesn't matter. We want 100 videos on YouTube by year end. If we do that, the views don't matter. The view, we want to hit X amount of views. We want to be monetized. But in reality, none of that matters. Our views will be higher than if we just said, we should probably post content. And then we're like, oh, damn, it's November. We haven't even started yet. That's what happens every time. And so by setting a goal, if we get to 98 videos, we're like, oh, we came up 2 videos short.
That's not the point.
It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point was like, if we put the goal there and we're chasing it, what do we have to become to get there? We have to record content. And now we're on podcast number 11. We've got, I think, like 20 shorts. So that's 31. I can't remember. I sent the email out the other day saying where we were and what we had posted. And it's like, okay, well, now we want to hit 100. How many more videos do we have to post and how much time do we have? It's like, okay, we need to post 1 a day. There we go.
Right.
And we know now what we have to do to get there. If you do that, like you can just look at it from the beginning and say, if we said we wanted to post 500 videos in a year and there's only 365 days and we know we're not working every single day, you could tell right away, like that's probably not going to work, you know, but nobody does that.
Yeah.
Nobody looks at it that way. You know, if I said I wanted to make $1 million, how many Twitch subs would that be? Like, okay, that would be, I don't know how many subs, a lot. It's like, is that realistic for you? Probably not.
Yeah.
And so why get your hopes up? But also, why shoot in the dark and not have a goal at all?
Yeah.
Make a realistic goal and just, you know, grind for it. And then you have a purpose, you have a vision, you know where you're trying to go. Whether you get there or not, it doesn't matter. Like, you just do it, because you may get halfway through the goal and realize, like, I realize now it's not about Twitch. I should be posting to YouTube to hit this. So I'm not going to hit the goal this year, but it's because I realized the major flaw in my thinking. I need to post on YouTube. Next year, my Twitch will get there if I keep posting on YouTube consistently.
That goal, it opened your mind.
It opened your mind. Exactly. And that's the thing, is like, that's what we do here all the time. Yeah. We posted the website. The goal was to post the website, and then we get on the website, we post it, and it's like, oh, damn, I didn't think about that. That right there is like, okay, now we know where to go.
If we didn't have a website.
If we didn't have a website, and the goal to post the website and get it done.
And I think setting up your business in general to be flexible and to be able to pivot is important. And just that is, people hate change. You said at the beginning, people were upset about Twitter changing to X and all this, and they didn't even notice that they're now going to get paid for their tweets, if they're large enough, obviously.
Yeah.
Which is such a positive, but it's because people hate change. They hate the change from to X. They hate the change that Elon's doing this and that. People don't like change.
Yep.
But if you're a small creator right now and your goal is to be a big creator, you're going to have to change to get there.
Oh, yeah.
Your content now is going to change. How you structure things is going to change. Your team, who you work with, who you pay, everything, your schedule, time in, it's all going to change, because I promise you the big creators aren't doing what you're doing. That's why they're big. So you are going to have to change what you're doing. And if you're constantly stuck in, I'm just going to get on and stream every day and maybe I'll get bigger.
Maybe I'll get big. Maybe I'll grow.
You won't. You won't. Like, you probably won't, to be honest. So you need to change what you're doing, and that just does take some self-introspection. And
you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. But I did want to harp on the one thing you just said a minute ago, which is like the joy is in the journey. Like, you enjoy the process, right?
Yeah.
You could say right now, like, okay, my goal is to get to 200 pounds. You know, I want to weigh 200 pounds. If you get there and you're looking in the mirror at your 200-pound self, you're like, man, I put on 20 pounds. Like, this is awesome. And then you're like,
it would be more than 20 pounds. Just want to point that.
You're looking in the mirror and then you're like, I want to be 210.
Yeah.
I want to be 220. Like, it constantly is going to change, because the joy is trying to get there.
Or I want to cut down, and I want to be 185, but I want to look massive. You know what I mean? Like, you're exactly right. It changes, and you got to be like willing to, like, how many things have we talked about that we decided not to do just because we had the conversation and everything. And when we talked through it, you mentioned the other day, you said something great, and this kind of strays off topic, but you said something the other day about, you Discorded me because we had gotten off a long call, and you said, sometimes I hate how disagreeable I am. And I told you, I was like, I think I Discorded you back. I meant to tell you if I didn't.
You did.
Yeah. I was like, no, that's a good thing. That's the reason, the disagreeableness. Yeah. I mean, if you're in personal conversation, everything, you and I are at dinner and you're just disagreeing with everything, like, yeah, that's annoying. But when it comes to business, we're trying to be the best version of ourselves. And you're always like, have we thought through this? Have we done this? Have we done this? Because the fact of the matter is, there is nothing in business, especially when it comes to content creation, that you need to change right now. You always have time to think through it. You just have to, ultimately, you have to make a decision, but you just have to get the conversation going and then get started and understand that it might change. I posted the website and I'm like, the website's good. You disagreed because of this or that. And I'm like, I didn't think about that. That's a positive. If you're if you're stuck behind an ego, like, you're never going to grow. Like, it's not going to happen.
I've seen, to your point right there, I've seen creators post or tweet about a video they made and how it's a 10 out of 10, and they're upset because they put so much time and energy into it. You got to move on. Like, you're not changing that. You can't control the algorithm. You can't control how it did. If you have an ego about, I made this video and it's so good and people should watch it. Well, okay, that doesn't matter. Like, that's your opinion. And of course you're biased because it's your video. So it comes down to all those things, to your point about, you have to be willing to sunk cost, right?
Learn from it.
Let's say you pay an editor. They come in, they say it's going to cost $5,000 to do a website redesign or graphic design, something like that, and you pay them, and it's horrible, and it turns out whatever. It's like you got screwed. You learned a lesson. It's sunk cost. You got to move forward. You can't get stuck on it. And I'm not saying just to disregard these things and make quick, fast, bad decisions. Obviously not. You just said it. Most of these decisions in this industry aren't rushed.
No.
You do have time to make them. You have to be willing to look into it and make them. And that's important.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's not that you made a decision too fast or too slow. It's not that you just made the wrong decision. You give the website example, and I could definitely see people getting burned like, oh, I paid $100,000 for a website. It didn't hit, got no leads, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, and it would be very easy to say like, I'll never do that again. It's like, no, you maybe just paid the wrong person. Yeah. Like there's so many things behind the scenes.
If you're in business for long enough, you will do it again. You will make a bad decision again, and that's going to be part of it. The goal is, though, you have to learn from that.
Yeah.
And then get better.
Yeah, I don't know how many things you and I have done, and honestly, a lot of it's me making a decision saying like, I think this will be the thing, and then it's just not. It folds, and it has nothing to do with anything else other than it was just the wrong decision. Like I just at some point I picked the wrong person, or I picked the wrong thing to do, or my focus should have been elsewhere. It was just the wrong decision. Move on, go on to the next thing. People putting that much time into a video and then it's a 10 out of 10, they're like, I spent more time on this than anything else. As sad as it is, that's your fault. You shouldn't have put that much time into it. Not because it's not a super quality video, but maybe it is a super quality video, but that's not what the audience wanted. It's just not what they wanted.
And you can't control that algorithm, so
get over it.
Yeah, you have to just move on. Yeah, I
think
it's important.
Before we move on, I do, because I told Ben we'd answer his question. So, and it's not so much a question, but he was pointing out that 85% of students, based on Ben's high school teacher friend, 85% of students said they want to be YouTubers. I've heard this a number of times from other people as well. My mom and my sister-in-law are teachers. Everybody wants to be my niece has a YouTube channel, which is hilarious. And it's like these home videos, and they're like, like the camera's not in focus. Like it's just chaos. But to her, it's so much fun to do.
America's Funniest Home Videos type style.
Yeah, there's like a 16-second video of literally nothing happening. It's like her recording the floor, and she uploaded it. It's probably I don't know. And my niece is like 11. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you see being the difference in a generation from now? Because everything we've talked about, we're so concerned with Twitter and all these things and everything happening right now and everything happening so fast. And when you look back, you're like, 2020, that was forever ago, and that was COVID, and Fortnite's popping off. And that is all still very recent. My 11-year-old niece, when she turns 23, she's out of college, maybe she's worked at a job for a year. What does that look like? And is she now a YouTuber? And is she working at a business where YouTube is so popular now that every business is on YouTube?
Yeah.
Do you see that being a thing, or no?
So I'm going to preface the answer to this because I do have an opinion on this. I'm going to preface the answer by saying I heard a quote, and I can't remember who was saying it, but it basically said that 100 years ago, and maybe even 50 years ago, the world was driven all by the oil industry. Mm-hmm. And the way that basically worked is it was all centered around that key thing, and a lot of industries around that were growthed off of the oil industry. Yep. And the money that surrounded big oil. And now it has shifted, and the world since the internet is ran by attention and impressions, yeah. Marketing, eyes. It's driven by who controls. So that's what the quote was basically the world's driven by who controls the oil. Now it's driven by who controls the eyes. Mm-hmm. Who has the attention of people? Who is it? It's Google, it's YouTube, it's Amazon. It's these companies that have everyone's data. Yep. And it's internet marketing, it's affiliate marketing. That's what drives the world. And so to your point, what do we see the future looking like with that? I think it continues. I think, obviously I think AI and all of that is going to drastically change how businesses are ran. It already is a lot. People don't even know that it is, and it is. Yeah. So that's going to be a big thing. I think certain markets will emerge out of this, sub-markets that aren't currently even existing. And so I think some of those may take off per se. But I mean, I think you even look into, I'm going to go back to the younger crowd in a minute, but you even go into like what Elon is trying to do with X and how he wants it to be the hub for everything. He wants you to be able to pay people on there. He wants basically it to be the Walmart of the internet and like get anything, anywhere, pay people.
I hadn't heard that analogy, but yeah, the Walmart,
yeah, that's what he's trying to do. I don't know if you've read about that, but I mean, that's going to change how things work. I mean, even Amazon has changed how things work. So I think the young generation that seeks out the content creators and they see Mr. Beast and they want that, to your point, I do think there'll be more of that. I think different platforms will continue to grow. And you saw Instagram introduce Threads. It kind of came up and fell off.
Yeah.
Other platforms will work. You know, we're seeing Twitter change right now. I think those opportunities will continue. And I think the monetization structures around all of this will continue to be advertising and ads. That's just how the world works right now. I don't know what 30 years looks like, obviously, but I do think it's going to change and is changing a lot of how people are working and how people are, you know, starting out their careers. You know, the shift from college to now, a lot of people don't need to go to college. That's changed a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it changes a ton.
It's just so interesting. I remember when I was a kid growing up and what YouTube was then, and posting a video. I had a friend who posted a video of, we were riding dirt bikes, and back then it was so much different, and like uploading was so much harder.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking back to that, I had a fond memory the other day, and I like, it was almost like nostalgic thinking back to that time in my life. And now I'm like, YouTube is so important for our business and what we do, just because of like, if for no other reason, the creators we service, they're on YouTube, but also now we're trying to get into YouTube to advocate for what we do and where we can help and provide value, market ourselves. And, you know, that's so much different. And it's like our generation has grown with YouTube and then molded YouTube into what we've needed it to be. And I know it's the opposite. It's actually YouTube has just, Google's smart enough, you know, like they have molded it into what they thought we would use it for. But it's just weird thinking about it that way. And now how we use it.
It has changed a lot. And
it's crazy.
It's progressing very rapidly. And that's what you see with the AI stuff and how it's changing the world.
And it'll only get faster.
It will. And it is a little terrifying for sure. And we could talk about that on a different episode. But
it was terrifying when the world was run by oil. I mean, the thing is like, it'll always be terrifying for another reason, because the same way people try to manipulate oil prices and there's embargoes and countries are getting like threatening nuclear war over oil, they're going to do the same over this, but they're going to do the same over whatever's next.
What about TikTok? It was with China, and then you saw the stuff coming out about they were banning it here.
You can always count on humans to do human things. Like that's always going to be the case. So yeah, to mess it up, to find, they're going to want, there's going to be a party that wants more of this one thing. I was going to say more of X, but then that sounds like more of Twitter. Like now I can't even say that.
Right. But no,
what's next? What else you got?
No, that's really it. I mean, we're going to wrap it up here pretty much, but I guess in closing, and you know, kind of as this tweet closes out, because it's kind of what we centered this podcast around, basically just the understanding of that, I think, can be so valuable. Yeah. Everything that we talked about today, there's no real key point. There's no climax to it. It's more of, we just want this to be talked about more. I want people to understand it more. Yeah. I don't want people to say, oh, you work with content creators, how do they monetize? I want them to know. I want them to know how they monetize. I want them to, you know, you sent me something about some creators that we watch, popular creators, and how awesome it is they get to do what they do. And I said, yeah, but how much hard work went into that? And you obviously know that, but I just addressed it of like, what about the last 10 years that they've been grinding? Yeah. And then now they're getting paid off for it. So I think that was kind of the goal of this episode, was just really to highlight it, talk about it more. I know we have creators that we work with that probably are sitting there, if they're listening to this, and they're like, dude, thank God somebody's talking about this, because they are the ones grinding, and maybe they feel underappreciated or they feel like they're alone. And so that's part of the reason we love this industry and we love working with people, is we get to see those people and hopefully help them.
The behind the scenes is so much more fun than I could have ever expected it to be. Like these people, all these creators we look up to and think so highly about based on the performances they put on when they get on. And it is very much like they have to be entertaining. When you see the behind the scenes and how much work they are putting in and all the different things they talk about and how excited they get about some of the future content they're going to release and all this stuff, that is so, in my opinion, so fulfilling, and it's
That's what
just
it's
an
about.
awesome place to be.
Well, and at that point, you're not.
And it's like, oh yeah, we got to do taxes. We're going to get on that, but it's been awesome talking and hearing about all these other things. We're going to take care of you on the tax front.
That's
but
the cool part, is because then you're not judging the person off of these KPIs of impressions and subscribers. You're judging them off of them as a person, and that's what this whole thing's about. And I really do think that's why the creators that are genuine and are just super authentic have grown so well, is because people just love that. Right? They want you to be authentic. They don't want you to follow some trend. They don't want you to do something that's just popular. They want to follow you because you're you. And so, I don't know. In closing, I would just say it is changing for the upcoming generation.
Yeah.
I would want them to be hearing about these cons that we talked about today, the mental health aspects, be setting up their businesses correctly from the beginning. You know, our other episode where we talked about who to pay first and how you should structure it, you know, things like that to be thinking about of, you get to work from home, and you get to play games all day if that's what you choose, content you want to create.
Good luck.
Be ready, because there's a lot that you can't control.
Because when you hit that first go live and not a soul comes through that stream, you're like, oh, I mean, is this really what
did I tell you the other day? It's pretty tough to tweet to nobody. And it is, because at the beginning, that's what it is.
Tweet to nobody, stream to nobody, post YouTube content to nobody, which is what we've done. And now we are slowly gaining followers and we're getting views. And I'm like, hey, we got X amount of views. And it's double what we were getting a month ago when we started. And like, it's not hard to go from 1 to 2.
But shout out, if you are watching this,
thank you.
You are the person we are talking about right now.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you so much. And we're going to keep doing it regardless, because we love it.
And we're stubborn. So if you've enjoyed this episode, obviously like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you are in chat right now, give us thoughts on what we should talk about next week. We're doing this weekly. We've been consistent with it so far. We have 11 episodes, which puts us, I believe, in that like the top 1% of podcasts out there, which is very hard to believe.
I mean, we're the best podcast.
We're obviously the best. I know that if you're watching right now, you know that. But if you would still like and subscribe, what else did I forget? We'll be here back same time, 12:30 next week. We'll just make it consistent.
One update is guests coming soon.
Guests coming soon.
Guests coming soon. We're super excited to get some people on here.
And I promise we're going to not say that every single time. We're actually going to get these guests on here. But guests coming soon. Super excited about it. So, continue to follow. We're on Twitter, obviously. If you want to get in touch with us, you can DM us on either the main account. Joseph and I are both on Twitter individually as well. The website will be public here shortly because I am putting the finishing touches. So multiple ways to get in contact with us. But we just appreciate anybody who's tuned in thus far. Thank you for watching. And I think that's it.
See you on the next one.
Peace.
Peace.